Hey kings and queens, welcome to Queen's Afro Korea Diaries, and today's story is about an arrogant boss who got what he deserves.
Vice President Choi Jae-hong's voice rips through the glass walls of his executive suite like a sledgehammer through ice. You are fired! You are evicted! And if you are not out of this building in the next 60 minutes, I will have security drag you out myself. 43 employees freeze mid-keystroke. Someone's coffee stops halfway to their mouth. A printer whirs to a halt, like even the machine knows now is not the time. And standing in the dead center of all of it, absorbing the full volcanic weight of his rage without flinching, without giving him even one single tear to feel proud of, is Zuri Vance. She is wearing the navy blazer she ironed at 5 a.m. Her natural curls are pinned into a high, precise ponytail. Her corporate badge swings slightly as she straightens, and she does straighten instinctively, like her spine has its own instructions, clutching a thick folder of quarterly reports to her chest like armor. That folder is her work. Flawless. None of that matters to Jae-hong. It never did. He is leaning across the glass desk, charcoal suit immaculate, dark tie straight, finger pointed directly at her face, completely unaware that his whole performance is being watched. Not by the 43 frozen employees, not by the panicked HR manager clutching her lanyard in the doorway, by the man standing perfectly still at the elevator bank. He has been there for 4 minutes. Nobody noticed. And that, on some level, is entirely the point. Tall, Korean, light brown hair, white shirt open at the collar, disappearing under a black trench coat so heavy it moves like a second shadow. Hands in his pockets, expression completely calm. Not the calm of someone who doesn't understand what is happening, the calm of someone who already decided how it ends. Kaylin Kong is not watching Jae-hong scream at his wife the way a bystander watches a crisis. He is watching the way a man watches something he already owns, finish destroying itself. He doesn't step forward yet. He doesn't have to. As of 6:47 this morning, Choi Jae-hong has been screaming inside a building that no longer belongs to him. He just doesn't know it yet. Okay, but can we just talk about the fact that you watched this whole thing and you are not subscribed yet? Bestie, sit with that for a second. You just watched Zuri hold herself together under all of that. You clocked Kaylin standing in the back like a loaded weapon in a trench coat. You felt it. You are already in this story. And now you are about to scroll away and forget to subscribe, like it didn't just rearrange your whole nervous system? The guilt of that is between you and God, honestly. Quin's Afro Korea Diaries is where we tell these stories, Black women walking into rooms that were never built for them, and the wild, dramatic, cinematic ways they walk back out on top. If that is your thing, and clearly it is, then subscribe, because you do not want to miss what happens when Kaylin walks into that boardroom. Like, comment, share it with a friend who needs to see Jae-hong get what is coming to him. And subscribe, because you deserve to know what happens next just as much as Zuri does. The breach of contract notice slides across the glass desk like a verdict. Pre-typed, pre-signed. Which means Jae-hong prepared this before Zuri even walked into the room this morning. This was never about her performance, never about the numbers. This was about Zuri knowing too much and Jae-hong needing someone to disappear before the real numbers surfaced. Because buried inside the quarterly logistics file sitting right there in that folder against her chest is a discrepancy. A very specific, very catastrophic, 8-figure discrepancy that does not belong to her. One that belongs entirely to him. And he knows it. And she knows it. And the only difference between them in this moment is that he has the title, the desk, and 43 witnesses who are too afraid to say a word. So he fires her. Publicly. With his finger in her face and his voice bouncing off every glass wall on the 47th floor. And Zuri does not beg. She does not cry. She does not explain herself or defend herself or give him the satisfaction of watching her unravel in front of every colleague who is currently pretending to look at their screens. Her hands are trembling as she picks up the notice. She folds it once, slides it into the folder on top of her own work, and she walks. Straight back, chin level, eyes forward. Past the frozen HR manager, past the shocked analysts, past the glass partition where 3 of her colleagues are watching her, with expressions caught somewhere between guilt and relief that it is not them. And then she passes the elevator bank. And for exactly 1/fraction of 1 second, her eyes meet his. She almost stops walking. He is standing exactly where he was when she first clocked him 20 minutes ago. Tall. Still. Hands in the pockets of that black trench coat. Light brown hair swept back. White shirt open at the collar. Expression completely unreadable. Kalen does not say anything. He does not move. He does not reach for her or make a scene or do anything that would draw a single eye in his direction. He just looks at her. And somehow that look says everything. It says he saw all of it. It says Chae-hong just made the single most catastrophic mistake of his professional life. It says, don't worry, and not in the soft, gentle way. In the way that means something is already in motion and the man standing at that desk has absolutely no idea. Zuri walks into the elevator. The doors close. The 47th floor. Chae-hong straightens his tie, picks up his phone, and feels like a man who just won something. He has never been more wrong about anything in his life. Now stay with me because this is where it gets interesting. Most people in Kalen Kang's position would go upstairs, make noise, demand to speak to someone, threaten a lawsuit in the lobby like a reasonable human being. Kalen does not go upstairs. He goes down. The basement parking garage of JS Global is cold and gray and smells like exhaust and money. His blacked-out SUV is idling exactly where he left it. His driver does not ask questions. Nobody who works for Kalen asks questions. He gets in. The door closes. And in the silence of that vehicle, in the dark of that garage, with the engine running low and quiet like a held breath, Kalen picks up his phone and makes one call. One. It connects on the second ring. Ji-hoon, his chief financial enforcer. The man who can trace the ownership structure of a multinational holding company the way most people trace a phone number. The man who once restructured an entire real estate portfolio between midnight and 6 a.m. and had the paperwork notarized before the other party woke up. Kalen does not explain what happened. He does not need to. Ji-hoon already has ears in that building. That is the point of having ears in a building. What Kalen says is this. Find the holding company that owns this tower. Buy it. All of it. Commercial paper, real estate equity, every percentage point of ownership stake. I want it done before the markets open tomorrow morning. That is all he says. Ji-hoon says, 40 seconds. That is how long it takes for Kalen Kang to decide that a vice president who screamed at his wife in front of 43 people will not have a building to scream in by sunrise. The SUV pulls out of the garage, smooth, quiet, unhurried, like nothing happened at all. Now pause, real quick. You are watching this, you are feeling all of this, and you have not subscribed yet. I can feel it. You are sitting there fully invested in Zuri's life. You watched Kalen make that phone call. Your jaw is somewhere near the floor, and you have not hit the button. That is wild to me. Quinn's Afro-Korea Diaries is where we tell exactly these kinds of stories, and I need you on the inside for what happens next. Subscribe. It takes 3 seconds and you will never have to find out what happened from somebody else's comment section. Go ahead. I'll wait. Zuri gets back to her apartment at 4:17 p.m. She knows something is wrong before she even steps off the elevator on her floor. There are 2 men in the corridor outside her door. Dark jackets. Lanyards that do not match any corporate security badge she has ever seen at JS Global. One of them is holding a locksmith's kit. They are already changing her locks. It has been less than 3 hours since she left the building. One of the men tells her that per the terms of her corporate housing agreement, the lease has been terminated effective immediately, and she has until 9 a.m. tomorrow to vacate the premises with her personal belongings. Zuri looks at him, then at the other one, then at the lock on her own front door that is halfway through being replaced. She does not raise her voice. She does not cry on this corridor either. She pulls out her phone, steps to the side, and sends one text. 3 words. They are at the apartment. The response comes back in under a minute. I know. Don't move. She leans against the wall, arms folded, watching these 2 men work on her door with the energy of someone who has just remembered exactly who she married. 11 minutes later, the corridor gets very crowded very fast. 4 men come off the stairwell. Suits, black ties. The kind of stillness in their posture that tells you immediately these are not security guards in the conventional sense. They do not announce themselves. They do not show credentials to Zuri. They position themselves with the quiet, precise efficiency of people who have done this particular kind of thing many times before. The 2 men with the locksmith kit stop working. One of Kaylin's men says something low and very calm that Zuri does not fully hear. Whatever it is, the 2 men pack up the kit, pick up their bags, and leave the corridor without another word. No argument, no phone calls, nothing. The lock on Zuri's door is restored in 4 minutes. And then Kaylin is there. He comes off the elevator without rushing, trench coat still on, expression still that same devastating calm. But when he looks at Zuri standing in that corridor, with her arms folded and her eyes a little too bright, something shifts in his face, something small and private that nobody else in that hallway would even catch. He crosses to her, doesn't say anything immediately, just puts one hand on the side of her face, tilts her chin up slightly, looks at her the way he always does when he is doing a quiet inventory of whether she is okay. She is not okay, and they both know it. And that is when it comes out. Not all at once, not dramatically. It comes out the way things do when you have been holding them for too long, in pieces, in a low voice, standing in your own hallway while 4 men in black suits pretend not to be listening. 6 months. She tells him it has been going on for 6 months. The sabotaged reports, the credit stripped from her work and handed to junior executives above her, the performance reviews that somehow never reflected the actual feedback her direct clients gave. The way Jae-hong would walk past her desk and make comments quiet enough that no one else could verify, but loud enough that she heard every word. Kaylin listens to all of it without interrupting. When she finishes, the corridor is very quiet. He looks at her for a long moment. Then he says, and this is the part that would terrify anyone who knew what those words actually meant coming from him. He says, "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Not angry. The kind of quiet that has weight to it. Zuri tells him the truth. She says she needed to know she could handle it herself. He nods once, like he understands that, like he even respects it. And then he says, "You did handle it. Now I'm going to handle the rest." Vance Sloan arrives at 11 p.m., not the next morning, not at a scheduled office appointment with a receptionist and a waiting area and a complimentary coffee. At 11 p.m., at Zuri's apartment, in a charcoal suit that looks like it has never experienced a wrinkle in its entire existence, carrying a slim briefcase and the energy of someone who finds this hour perfectly reasonable. Her full name is Adeze Vance Sloan, and she is the kind of attorney that corporations hire other attorneys to avoid. International corporate law, forensic financial litigation, 7 years working inside the structures that powerful men build to protect themselves, which means she knows exactly where the cracks are. Kaylin retained her 3 years ago for reasons that have nothing to do with JS Global and everything to do with the kind of empire he runs. She does not ask uncomfortable questions. She produces results with the quiet devastation of someone who has never once lost a case she decided to take seriously. She shakes Zuri's hand, sits down at the dining table, opens the briefcase, and says, "Walk me through everything from the beginning." So Zuri does, and while she talks, Vance Sloan is already pulling files, because Kaylin's tech network did not wait for this meeting to start working. In the 8 hours since that phone call in the basement garage, Ji-hoon's team has already pulled Jae-hong's logistics trail, encrypted financial transfers, offshore routing numbers buried inside vendor payment structures that look completely legitimate on the surface and are absolutely not. The discrepancy Zuri flagged in that quarterly report, The one Jae-hong screamed at her for, the one he used as the excuse to fire her, is not a discrepancy. It is a thread. And when you pull it, the whole thing unravels. $11.4 million, moved in increments small enough to avoid automatic flagging. Routed through 3 shell vendor accounts that technically exist, but have never performed a single documented service for JS Global. Dispersed into 2 offshore accounts registered in the names of holding entities that trace back, eventually, after enough layers, to Choi Jae-hong's brother-in-law in Busan. Vance Sloan looks at the decoded file for a long moment. Then she says, "He fired you because you were about to find this." Zuri says yes. Vance Sloan closes the folder, looks up, and smiles. Not warmly. The way a chess player smiles when they see the board 3 moves ahead. She says, "Good. Because what he thought was your termination paperwork is actually his confession." They work through the night, all 3 of them. Zuri cross-referencing the logistics data with her own compiled records. Vance Sloan building the legal architecture of what comes next. Kalen sitting at the far end of the table, mostly quiet, occasionally on his phone, present in the way that means nobody in this room is unprotected. By 4 a.m., the forensic audit is complete, documented, verified, airtight. By 5 a.m., Vance Sloan has filed the first of 3 injunctions. By 6 a.m., Ji-hoon sends one message to Kalen's phone. It's done. Kalen reads it, sets the phone face down on the table, and for the first time since yesterday morning, he exhales. Jae-hong gets to the office at 8:52 a.m., feeling like a man who has just cleaned up a very messy problem. He takes his usual elevator, nods at his usual security team, stops by the executive kitchen for his usual coffee. Everything is exactly where it should be. The office hums around him with the familiar rhythm of people who know better than to make eye contact before 10 a.m. He settles into his chair, opens his laptop, pulls up the termination confirmation for Zuri's corporate housing. Done. Filed. Processed. She is gone. He allows himself one small moment of satisfaction and then moves on, because he is a professional. At 9:14 a.m., his desk phone rings. It is the building's real estate management office, a woman named Ms. Park, who handles corporate lease administration and has, in Jae-hong's experience, never called him directly about anything. She sounds uncomfortable, careful in the way that people sound when they have been told to deliver news they do not fully understand but can tell is significant. She tells him that as of 7 a.m. this morning, the commercial ownership of JS Global Tower has transferred to a new primary stakeholder. Full acquisition, clean title, no encumbrances. Jae-hong tells her, that is not possible. These things take weeks, months, due diligence, board approval, regulatory sign-off. Ms. Park says she understands that, and yet the paperwork is fully executed and has already been filed with the city's commercial property registry. Jae-hong asks her, who? She hesitates. Then she tells him that per the new ownership's legal counsel, all executive suite lease arrangements are under immediate administrative review, and no corporate lease privileges can be confirmed, extended, or renewed until that review is complete. Which means, and she is very sorry to tell him this, his executive suite access has been temporarily suspended. Jae-hong's coffee goes cold on his desk. He calls his own corporate attorney, who calls the property registry, who confirms everything Ms. Park just said is entirely accurate and entirely legal. He calls 2 board members, who have also received administrative notices from the new ownership's legal team and are, to put it plainly, not answering his calls. He calls his assistant, who tells him, very quietly, that 3 men in dark suits arrived on the 47th floor 20 minutes ago and have been speaking with building security. Jae-hong stands up, walks to his floor-to-ceiling window, looks out at the city below. Something is wrong. He does not know what yet. He does not know how wrong. He does not know that the building he is standing in, the desk he sat at, the coffee he just drank, the car park space in the basement with his name on a little placard. None of it belongs to the world he woke up in yesterday. But he can feel it, the way you feel weather before it arrives, a pressure change, something shifting under the surface of things. He tells his assistant to call an emergency shareholder meeting, today, this afternoon. He needs the board in that room, and he needs them controlled before whatever this is becomes something he cannot manage. His assistant says she will arrange it immediately. Jae-hong straightens his tie, rolls his shoulders back. He has navigated worse than this. He tells himself that with total conviction. He has absolutely not navigated anything close to this. The boardroom on the 49th floor is the most expensive room in the building. Dark oak table, high-backed leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling glass on two sides with a view of the city that is specifically designed to remind everyone sitting in it how far they are from the ground. At 2 p.m., it fills with 7 board members, 2 financial controllers, Jae-hong's deputy, and an energy that is trying very hard to present itself as routine and failing completely. Jae-hong stands at the head of the table, jacket on, posture immaculate. He has prepared a budget adjustment presentation, clean numbers, confident language, a reframing of the quarterly discrepancy that he fully intends to lay at the feet of an intern who is no longer employed here and therefore cannot dispute anything he says. He starts talking. He gets 4 minutes in, and then the boardroom doors open. Not quickly, not dramatically. They open the way doors open when the person on the other side has absolutely nothing to prove, and everyone in the room is about to find that out. Zuri walks in first. She is not wearing the navy blazer. She is not wearing an intern badge. She is wearing a custom-tailored, elegant, pepper-red ivory power suit that fits like it was made specifically for this moment, because it was. Her hair is down, voluminous, every curl exactly where it should be. She is carrying a single slim portfolio, and she walks to the far end of that oak table, and she stands there, and she looks at Jae-hong with the expression of a woman who has been waiting for this with extraordinary patience. The room does not know what to do with her. Jae-hong opens his mouth, and then the doors open again. Kalen walks in like he owns the place, which, as of 7 a.m. this morning, he does. He is not alone. Flanking him on the left is Vance Sloan, briefcase in hand, expression carved from something colder than marble. On his right are 2 men from the city's Financial Regulatory Authority, badges visible, faces neutral in the particular way that regulators look neutral when they already know what they are about to find. Behind them, 4 more figures in dark suits who position themselves at intervals along the boardroom wall with the quiet, practiced precision of people who are not here to take notes. Kalen does not look at Jae-hong when he enters. He looks at the table. Then he pulls out the chair directly to Zuri's right, sets it slightly back from the table, and sits, one leg crossed, hands relaxed in his lap. Like a man who has arrived slightly early to something he scheduled. The room is completely silent. Jae-hong finds his voice first, which is impressive given that every coherent thought in his head has just scattered like paper in wind. He says this is a closed shareholder meeting and demands to know how they got access to this floor. Vance Sloan opens her briefcase without looking at him, removes a document, and slides it down the length of the oak table with the calm efficiency of someone who has been waiting to do exactly this. Jae-hong looks down at it. It is the deed to the building. Fresh ink. City registry stamp. Beneficial owner listed clearly on the second page under a corporate entity that traces, in 3 clean steps, directly to Kalen Sungjin Kong. Then she slides a second document. Majority acquisition of controlling interest in JS Global's subsidiary holding structure, 53%. Executed and registered before the markets opened this morning. Then a third. A formal notice of administrative authority transferring all executive decisions regarding personnel, lease agreements, and corporate governance to the new primary stakeholder, pending regulatory review. 3 documents. 12 seconds. Jae-hong's entire professional architecture. Gone. One of the board members picks up the deed, reads it, sets it down, picks up his phone and steps away from the table. Another board member is already leaning over to read the acquisition document with the expression of a man doing very fast mental arithmetic about his own position in all of this. Jae-hong looks at Kalen. Kalen looks back at him for the first time since entering the room, and says nothing. Just holds eye contact with the particular patience of someone who has already won, and is simply allowing the other person time to understand it. Wait, hold on, stop scrolling. You have been watching this entire thing unfold. You watched Zuri walk into that boardroom. You watched Kalen slide that deed across the table. Your whole body is doing something right now, and you have not subscribed to Quinn's Afro-Korea Diaries yet. I can feel you. You are right there, fully in it, and you are lurking. I see you. Just tap the button, right now, before we go any further. Because what happens in the next 60 seconds of this story is the part people are going to be talking about, and you need to be subscribed before it drops so you get the notification. Go. Subscribe. Like this video. Come back. Okay, good. You are one of us now. No leaving. Vance Sloan stands. She opens a second file from the briefcase, this one thicker, tabbed, color-coded with the kind of organization that only happens when someone has been building a case with genuine love for the work. She addresses the board directly, not Jae-hong, the board. She tells them she represents the interests of the new primary stakeholder, and she wants to walk them through a forensic financial audit of JS Global's logistics and vendor payment structures covering the past 22 months. She tells them she will try to be brief. She is thorough. Devastatingly, specifically, document by document, thorough. The $11.4 million, the shell vendor accounts, the routing structure, the offshore dispersal, the beneficial ownership traced to a relative in Busan. Every layer of it laid out on the table with supporting documentation, transaction records, and decoded transfer logs that Kaylin's tech network pulled and Jihoon's team verified overnight. As she speaks, Zuri opens her own portfolio and places supplementary documents in front of the two financial controllers. Her original quarterly analysis, the discrepancy she flagged, the internal communications showing Jae-hong's response to that flagging, the timeline that shows, clearly, that her termination was initiated within 48 hours of her compiling the report that exposed everything. The room gets very quiet in a different way than before. Before, it was the quiet of shock, of people not knowing what was happening. This quiet is the quiet of people who understand exactly what is happening and are calculating very quickly how close they are standing to the fire. One board member says he had no knowledge of any of this. Another says the same thing almost simultaneously. A third pushes the acquisition document slightly away from himself as if creating physical distance from it will help. Jae-hong watches his board turn, one face at a time, like watching dominoes fall in slow motion. These are men he has worked alongside for 11 years. Men who have covered for him, looked away from things they should not have looked away from, signed documents without reading them carefully enough. And now, with Kaylin's regulatory team in the room and a forensic audit on the table, every single one of them is choosing themselves over him without a second's hesitation. He had always known they would. He just never thought the moment would actually arrive. He stands up. His voice comes out wrong, too high, too fast. The composure that he wears like armor has developed, in the last 4 minutes, a series of very visible cracks. He points at Zuri and says she fabricated the audit. He says she has been working against JS Global since the day she arrived. He says she is a disgruntled, terminated employee with an agenda, and everyone in this room knows it. Nobody in the room responds. Not because they agree with him, because Kaylin has just stood up. He does not raise his voice. He does not need to. He crosses the room at a pace that is unhurried and somehow still closes the distance faster than it should. The regulatory officers step aside without being asked. The board members who are standing sit back down instinctively. The 4 men along the wall do not move, but somehow the room becomes more aware of them. Kaylin stops 2 feet from Jae-hong. And what happens next is not loud. It is the opposite of loud. It is the kind of quiet that has mass and temperature and makes the air in a room feel fundamentally different. He speaks low enough that only the people closest to them can hear. He tells Jae-hong his name, his full name, which Jae-hong clearly recognizes because the color leaves his face in a single visible wave from forehead to jaw. Then Kaylin tells him, very calmly and very specifically, exactly what he owns in this city. Not to brag, to inform. To ensure that the man in front of him has complete clarity about the geography of what he just walked into when he decided to use his wife as a scapegoat for his own theft. He tells him that the building they are standing in belongs to him. The subsidiary they are all employed by belongs to him. The commercial real estate portfolio that houses 3 of Jae-hong's personal investments also, as of this morning, belongs to him. He tells him that the security team Jae-hong sent to Zuri's apartment last night was escorted from the premises by men who have worked for him for 6 years. He tells him that the guards on this floor, the ones Jae-hong has been ordering around for 2 years, the ones he used to intimidate junior staff, the ones he had standing outside Zuri's department specifically, have been on his payroll since the day Zuri took that internship. He was never watching. He was always watching. Jae-hong's mouth opens. Nothing comes out. Kalen takes one step back. Then he looks at Jae-hong with an expression that is not anger and is not satisfaction. It is something much more final than either of those things. He says, "You had one job. Don't touch what's mine." Then he turns, walks back to Zuri's side of the table, and does not look at Jae-hong again for the remainder of the meeting. Because Jae-hong is no longer a problem. He is paperwork. The federal financial crimes officers enter the boardroom at 3:47 p.m. There are 4 of them. They do not knock. Vance Sloan filed the criminal referral at 6 a.m., and the regulatory team in the room has spent the last hour confirming everything they need. Jae-hong does not run. There is nowhere to go. He is standing in a building owned by the man he wronged, surrounded by a board that has already collectively agreed to cooperate fully with investigators in exchange for leniency considerations, with a forensic audit on the table that leaves absolutely no interpretive room. He looks at Zuri as they read him his rights. She is standing at the far end of that oak table, portfolio closed, suit immaculate, expression calm. Not triumphant, not cruel. Just settled. The way someone looks when something that was wrong for a very long time has finally, irrevocably, been made right. He opens his mouth one last time. Whatever he intends to say dies before it arrives. Because Zuri looks at him with the quiet, complete composure of a woman who has already moved on to the next thing. And the next thing is considerably larger than anything he will ever be part of again. They walk him out, past the frozen executive assistants, past the analysts at their glass desks, past the elevator bank where a tall man in a black trench coat stood 4 minutes and changed the entire trajectory of one very arrogant man's life. The 47th floor watches him go. And this time when it goes quiet, it is a different kind of quiet entirely. 6 months later, the executive suite on the 49th floor has new furniture. Warmer, less aggressively sterile. There are actual plants on the window ledge which the previous occupant would never have allowed because he did not believe in anything in his workspace that required maintenance and care. Zuri Vance Kong, Chief Operating Officer of JS Global, is standing at the floor-to-ceiling window at 7 a.m. with a coffee she actually had time to drink while it was still warm. The city stretches out below her in every direction. Glass and steel and morning light and the particular kind of quiet that a city has before it fully wakes up. She knows this city differently now than she did 6 months ago. She knows which parts of it her husband owns, which parts of it his network runs through like a current under the surface, which parts of it she herself has begun to quietly reshape through the operational restructuring she has spent the last 4 months executing with the focused, methodical precision that Jae-hong spent 2 years telling her was a liability. It was never a liability. It was always the whole point. The door opens behind her. She does not turn around because she knows his footsteps. Kaylin crosses the office, stops beside her at the window, and hands her a file. Ji-hoon pulled the preliminary numbers on the Southeast Asian expansion. She asked for them by Wednesday. It is Monday. She opens the file, scans the first page. Something in the numbers makes her smile. Small, private, the kind that belongs only to people who find genuine joy in a well-structured financial model. Kaylin watches her read. He does this sometimes. Just watches her work with the expression of someone who has never once doubted that she belongs exactly where she is. She closes the file, looks up at him, then looks back out at the city. She says, "We are going to need a larger legal team for the Seoul acquisition." He says he already called Vance Sloan. Of course he did. She leans slightly into his side. He puts one hand at the small of her back. They stand there together at that window, looking out over a city that runs in the light and in the shadows. And the line between those two things, The line that Zuri spent so long trying to keep herself on the safe side of has stopped feeling like a boundary and started feeling like home. Jae-hong Choi is currently awaiting trial on 11 federal counts of corporate fraud, embezzlement, and obstruction. His assets are frozen. His apartment, the one he tried to evict Zuri from by proxy, was repossessed as part of the asset seizure and is now being managed by a property firm that Zuri quietly acquired in month 3. She did not plan that last part, but she did not lose any sleep over it either. And that is the story of a man who looked at Zuri Vance and saw the safest target in the room. He saw a young black woman with a corporate badge and a folder of files and no one in her corner powerful enough to matter. He saw exactly wrong. Quinn's Afro-Korea Diaries is where we tell these stories, the ones about women who walk into rooms that were never designed for them and walk back out having restructured the whole building. Literally, in this case. If you made it to the end of this and you are not subscribed, bestie, what are you doing? You sat through all 10 chapters, you watched Jae-hong get walked out in handcuffs, you watched Zuri stand at that window, you felt all of it, and you are going to close this video and go about your day like this didn't just happen to you? The guilt of that is yours to carry. Subscribe to Quinn's Afro-Korea Diaries. Like this video. Share it with the friend who needs to see a woman win exactly like this. And comment below, because I want to know which moment got you. Was it Kaylin in the elevator? The deed sliding across the table? The plants on the windowsill? Tell me everything. I will be here.